Postpartum depression or perinatal mood disorders can affect 15 to 30% of moms in their first year of being a mom. Today we're talking all about postpartum depression on In the Know. Hello and welcome to In the Know. I'm Julia Supa. If you're a mom-to-be, a new mom, or even an experienced parent, you've likely heard the term postpartum depression. Its meanings and impressions vary depending on who you speak to. Today we're tackling this very tough topic, and joining me today is Patricia Tomasi, postpartum depression advocate, and Alexandra Weinberger, labor and postpartum doula. Welcome to In the Know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is a heavy topic, and an important one at that. It's not talked about, postpartum depression, nearly enough, and you're here to shed some light on it. Tell us, Patricia, you are an advocate for postpartum depression.
So yeah, very reluctantly have become a fierce advocate because I went through it myself twice. And I just found that when I was going through it, there was no help for me. Yeah, we have awareness, a little bit of awareness, I think, but not enough in terms of getting myself to the doctor, being able to describe my symptoms, having the doctor be knowledgeable about all of the different facets of postpartum depression, prescribing me the right treatment, the right therapy, and then monitoring my recovery. And also starting this way back to when the baby is first conceived. Like right now in Canada, we don't even have screening for postpartum depression. So because all of this, I've become an advocate for better prevention and treatment for postpartum depression in Canada.
So we'll talk a little bit about your story in a bit, but Alexandra, you are a labor doula.
Yes, and a postpartum doula.
And a postpartum doula. For people at home who may not be aware, because I think the definition of postpartum depression is so vast, what is it?
I mean, postpartum depression, it affects people differently. We even have people, sometimes perinatal depression becomes an issue even before they've had the baby, where people are really struggling with this time where everyone's told, you're supposed to be happy and you're supposed to be excited. And there's so many changes in the family, physically, emotionally, mentally, that people go through over this period of time. And we, like Patricia said, we really don't have enough support and information out there to help people.
Okay, Patricia, tell us about your story. So you said you experienced it 2 times.
I did. So I have a history of depression and anxiety, and that in itself, the last few years we've had great campaigns across the country to raise awareness for mental health. But I'm 39, so when I was going through anxiety and depression growing up, it's a heavy, heavy stigma. So I wasn't really diagnosed until my 20s. But then when I became pregnant at about 29, 30, the doctor, I had an OB, never asked me about prior history of anxiety or depression. I never thought to bring it up. I was anxious throughout the whole pregnancy. In fact, I had a panic attack in my first trimester, but I just thought, oh, it's just because I'm anxious in general. I didn't know this could morph into postpartum depression. I didn't know what postpartum depression was. So I didn't know I had postpartum depression until about 8 months after the baby was born. So I suffered that whole time. I had heart palpitations, chest tightness, thoughts, very disturbing, they're called intrusive thoughts, derealization. So when I finally said, I think there's something not right here, I need to get help, it was almost, towards the end of my postpartum depression when my hormones started leveling off. That's when I knew, that's when I could look back and say, holy, something was not right. And no one, not at my 6-week follow-up, no one ever asked me, are you feeling this, this, and this? Because we have something called the Edinburgh Postpartum Depression Scale, which I don't even like. I think they need to update it. It's like archaic in itself. But at least it has some questions that the doctor can ask you while you're pregnant and postpartum to see if there are any red flags there.
And are there red flags? What are the red flags?
Some of the red flags are things like inability to sleep even when you're so tired, especially when we're talking postpartum. You are up at various hours of the night with your baby, and most people, that can definitely be a red flag if even when you have that time carved out where you could sleep, you just can't turn your brain off. Intrusive thoughts, like Patricia said, so those are not the occasional. I mean, everyone kind of has those moments, you know, even me personally without a baby involved, you know, you have those moments where you're standing beside a busy street and you think, oh my gosh, what if like I fell onto the street or something? But we're talking about constantly, like people who are having trouble bringing their babies up and down stairs because they can't carry their babies on the stairs because they're so terrified of something happening, they're going to fall, the baby falling, things like that. So things outside the realm of kind of normal new worries. I mean, most new parents suddenly have this very precious baby and there's all these worries that come into their head that they never even thought possible, and they're kind of very aware of their own mortality. But it's when it goes beyond that, when it stops people from doing the normal things in their lives, or when you have to set things up. There's postpartum obsessive compulsive disorder, so when you have to set things up very specifically, I can only feed the baby in this very specific chair after doing these very specific things in this very specific way. Those are all a lot of red flags, and some of the things that we also as postpartum doulas sometimes see in the families.
So what is it that you do as a postpartum doula?
So I mean, as a postpartum doula, generally, we come in and we're helping families to adjust to life with a new baby. And it looks very different from family to family. Some families want us to teach them how to hold their baby and diaper and bathe their baby, and really there's a lot of educational component. For other families, we're helping them with other things around the house, running some errands, cooking them some meals, throwing in a load of laundry, helping with feeding. And sometimes we're also caring for the baby, so parents can have a break, have a nap, do something for themselves, cook a meal because that's something they enjoy.
I had Alex.
Yeah, we worked
Nice.
together.
For my second baby, because knowing what I went through after the first one, I was like, oh my God, I really got to be prepared because this can happen again. So I had Alex, I had another postpartum I had everything set up. I even had like a night nanny because I knew if I wasn't getting my sleep, you know, things could go haywire from there. But I think it's also important to remember that yes, the external factors put more stress on a mom, and that can help induce postpartum depression, but it's also something that's biochemical. So that with my second, I had everything in place. My baby never cried. I'm telling you, slept right through the night from day one. And I didn't get postpartum depression until 3 months after she was born. It came on very suddenly, and it was 10 times worse than the first time.
Okay.
And there was nothing wrong in my life.
Okay. On that note, we have to take a short break. We'll be right back after the break with more In the Know. Welcome back to In the Know. We're talking all about postpartum depression today, and Patricia Tomasi and Alexandra Weinberger are here, both postpartum advocates, doula and an advocate. I asked you in the break, can people experience, or moms experience, postpartum depression in their first pregnancy and not their second, or vice versa? And you said it could happen anytime.
Yeah, of course, it can happen anytime. I mean, it's more common to have it a second time if you've already had it, as well as if you've had anxiety or depression or bipolar or anything in your past history, then you're more at risk of prenatal or postpartum depression. So really, it can come on at any time. That's why we need more education and awareness. And it's not about scaring moms. It's about, you know, we provide them with all the different risks that can happen in a prenatal class. And I think they devote, like, you know, one part of one class to postpartum depression. And I think the talk should start as soon as you make that first visit with your midwife or OB. And you should be monitored, especially if you've had a history of postpartum depression or anxiety and depression. You should be monitored throughout your entire pregnancy and postpartum, not just the first few months after you have the baby, all the way up to a year and even beyond.
So is that technically, or, you know, how long it lasts? Is it a year? Is it 2 years? Is there a timeline?
This is why it's so complicated.
Everyone's different.
Yeah.
Everyone's different, and because they're not everyone gets treated, not everyone gets treated right away, it can be really difficult for those kinds of statistics to even necessarily be accurate because it's so underreported and undertreated that it's hard to really know, you know. And then what classifies? Is any kind of depression that happens You know, if you start getting depressed a year after, is that part of it? We also don't talk about it. There's postpartum depression in men too. I mean, in fathers or in same-sex couples, the other parent, like it's not exclusively the person who birthed and delivered the baby, but unfortunately, just in general around mental health in our society, there's such a stigma and such a resistance to properly treating it. If someone breaks their arm, it's dealt with. If someone, you know, has mental or emotional concerns, it's a different story.
I think it's important to make a clear distinction, though, that postpartum depression in a woman is very different. The etiology of it, the physicality of it, is very different than a man who has depression in the postpartum period or someone else, because we're talking about hormones, we're talking about specifically the physiology of it. And I think we need to really understand that there are many different levels of postpartum depression. So a woman needs to get help even if she feels a little bit off, to have that conversation. Because right now we're bombarded with stories of women who kill themselves or kill their babies, who have postpartum psychosis. That's really hurting the stigma around postpartum depression, because that's very rare. It's very real, and those women need tremendous amounts of help, but it's also very rare.
That's your extreme case.
Extreme. Postpartum depression can start with just having an uneasy feeling. And if you don't get treated right away, which doesn't have to be medication, it can be cognitive behavioral therapy or interpersonal therapy, if you let it go, it can get worse. That's what happened to me with my first one. I wasn't treated because I didn't know I even had it. And it morphed into postpartum mania, so that I thought I was talking to angels and I was spending all my money. Like, it really morphed into almost postpartum bipolar. But of course I had no one keeping track of my progress, so that's why it got worse.
So let's talk about treatment, because that's obviously where, if people are at home watching and saying, you know, I might not feel so happy, I might feel a little bit off, what do they do? Do they go see a doctor? Do they call for help? What do they do?
Make an appointment with your family doctor, and hopefully your family doctor is up on the latest postpartum depression, you know, education and awareness, will run you through the Edinburgh Postpartum Depression Scale. You almost have to become your own advocate. Right now, the onus is on us, women, to get help. So you have to go to your family doctor. But you know, if you have mild postpartum depression, perhaps you're able to do that. But if you're sick, you don't even realize the fog that you're in. So how do you get yourself to the family doctor? That's why we need it reversed. We need screening before the woman gets it.
And for sure, a support network. I remember my doctor always saying, do you have a good support network? What's your husband like? Does he help you? And at the time, I didn't realize maybe those were her questions. Maybe she was gauging me. I don't know. But if you have a spouse or a partner or family members that are noticing some behavior, what should they do?
I mean, I think part of that is talking to the person you're concerned about, trying to get them help. You're talking about a support network as well. That's often when people are also calling us as postpartum doulas to come and support them. Not because we are necessarily, and we're not, diagnosing, but we can be part of that team. So that's where, you know, if someone is suffering from postpartum depression, they have a lot of other things on their plate. So having someone like a postpartum doula, friends, family come in and help with some of those things around the house, to help with baby care, to help. We have sometimes clients are hiring us because they're going through this, they're not even feeling like they're able to trust themselves. And so they want that extra person there, that postpartum doula who can say, yeah, this is exactly what you should be doing, or let me teach you how to do this, or let me show you a way to do that, so that they can feel a little bit more supported. And I think that's an important part. Some people have really supportive family and friends, and other people also just need that other person to come in. And we're also a really great ear to listen, because we don't come with that baggage of family and friends.
I was going to say a non-judgmental ear, because a lot of, whether you're a new mom or a mom for a second time, there's this stigma that, or, you know, belief that you need to do everything the right way because this is an innate thing. Being a mother is natural. So if you're not doing it right, you're doing it wrong.
And you almost feel like a failure if you end up with postpartum depression. I remember the first time I went through it, I thought it was my fault. I thought, God, if I can just think my way out of this, if I can just like, you know, get up already and do what needs to be done, I thought it was my fault. And then when I learned it was actually a hormonal, biochemical, physical illness, like hurting your knee, you need help if you hurt your knee, you need surgery, you need something, medication maybe, you need rehab. It's the same thing, except that now it's in our brain and it's hormones. So it's something that's not normal, but it's complicated. And thank God for Alex, because she used to do my grocery shopping for me. Food was really, really important to me because I really wanted to, you know, make sure I had all the nutrients. So I would send her to do lots of grocery shopping for me, food prep, and having her there was just a blessing.
Wonderful. I want to thank you both for coming on the show. Visit their websites for more information. When we come back after the break, we're going to talk to Jenny DiPietro, who also has a technique or a... We'll talk about it after the break. I don't want to give it away. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to In the Know. We're talking all about postpartum depression today on In the Know, and joining me now is Jenny DiPietro from Golden Heart Postpartum Services. Welcome to In the Know.
Thank you very much for having me on.
This has been a great half-hour discussion talking about postpartum depression. You come from a different background. You encapsulate placenta.
Placentas, that's right, that's right. So the placenta is born with the baby. A few minutes after the baby is born, it grows with baby and mom. This is the maternal side, so this is attached to mom. And this is the umbilical cord where the baby sits inside. So the placenta is attached to mom, is attached to baby, and is mixing blood and creating hormone production, doing all sorts of wonderful things to sustain a baby during pregnancy.
And so the placenta basically gives the baby all of its nutrients.
Yes, it does, and it whisks away the carbon dioxide that that the blood is letting out, and it's giving it nutrients, and it's doing all sorts of things. Yeah.
How did you become a placenta encapsulator?
You know what? I've always been really interested in birth and babies. I have 4 of my own. You do feel there's postpartum, fluctuations after you have a baby, and I didn't know that there was so much support that was involved. So you can, didn't know there was so much support. So that's how I was able to come to this.
And did you encapsulate your own placenta?
I didn't know enough about it at the time. At the time, people say, you could eat your placenta, and that didn't jive with me. So I learned a little bit more about it. I learned that it's not eating your placenta, that you encapsulate it, and you can actually take it in pills, in pill form. So it's not at all gross, or, there's a cleanliness to it, a neatness to it, yeah.
And so, in relation to postpartum depression, how does placenta encapsulation help the mom?
Okay, so we have a system in our body called an endocrine system, and the endocrine system is a system that produces and releases hormones in our body. When a woman gets pregnant and grows a placenta, the placenta takes over the hormone production. After the baby's born, the placenta comes out, and the placenta is born as well, and now there's really nothing producing hormones inside the woman's body. So the endocrine system all of a sudden has to start working again, and it's not working at top capacity. So by taking the placenta and encapsulating it, because it's so full of hormones and iron, and you're encapsulating it and ingesting it, you are able to balance out those hormones and replenish your body with iron.
So basically, this placenta is full of hormones. You're just putting it right back into your body.
Right back into your body, yeah. And your body can absorb the natural. This placenta is perfectly tailored to you, right? It's customized. It's exactly what your body needs, exactly what your body's put into it, and you're able to then get those benefits back. Okay.
And you've obviously been doing this, so how are mothers reacting to
They love it. They report that they're feeling more energy. Their mood is more balanced. Their milk comes in earlier and is more abundant. Yeah.
Okay. So the obvious question, how do you do this?
Well,
I'm thinking of myself, I'm lying there and it might be the last thing that I'm thinking about.
Absolutely. So I find that when you get pregnant, what you should be doing is, one of the things that you can be doing is, planning for your postpartum or your fourth trimester, your baby moon, whatever you want to call it, planning for this. So you would hire an encapsulator to come in to your home. You would bring your placenta home from the hospital if you have a hospital birth, keep it refrigerated, and then I come in and I bring my dehydrator and my pot and all these things. I steam it with some warming herbs, so ginger and myrrh. And then I dehydrate it, and then I mill it and make it into a powder, and then I encapsulate it. It's quick, it's easy, it's done.
And you do it right in the mother's home?
I do it in a mother's home. Yeah, that's important to me. And it's important for my clients too, because they know exactly what's being done with their placenta. They know that it's their placenta. It's not being, they know the whole entire process. Yeah.
Can I ask you, so for people that may have had to take medication or something while they're pregnant, are they still able to encapsulate their placenta?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, there are some medications, and you do have to talk to your doctor about the benefits, or if you are able. But most of the time, yes, it's not. Yeah, it's not an issue.
And so when you say talk to your doctor, are you talking to your OB, or are you talking to your family doctor while you're pregnant?
Yes, while you're pregnant, yeah. If
and
you're
saying
interested,
this is a plan?
yeah. I am not able to tell you whether or not you can. That's outside of my scope. So talking to your doctor would definitely give you a better idea of if it's safe for you to encapsulate your placenta. But most of the time, yes, it is.
Okay, and in the break, we were talking about misconceptions between placenta encapsulation and cord blood banking.
Yes.
Two different things.
Totally different things. Yeah, so placenta encapsulation, there's a lot of myths that go. You don't have to have a home birth. You don't have to have a doula. You don't have to have a midwife. You can absolutely have your baby in a hospital. And again, cord blood banking is when you take the blood, the stem cells from the cord, and you have them kept at a lab, just in case you need them for future sicknesses or illnesses in your family. With placenta encapsulation, all you're doing is you're taking the whole entire placenta, bringing it home, and we're putting it into pills. So it's not even close to being the same thing. Yeah.
Can people do both?
Absolutely, yes, because what happens is all the stem cells are in the cord, and actually I have to, as a placenta encapsulation specialist, I actually have to milk the cord of all the blood, so you're just taking away a step or two from what I do. So you absolutely can. Yeah, you can have a water birth, you can have a hospital birth. You can even do, some families choose to do something called a lotus birth, where they leave their placenta, when they leave the placenta attached to the baby, until it separates naturally after a few days. But when you're encapsulating placenta, you have to work on a partial lotus birth, so keeping the placenta attached for 4 hours instead of the days that follow birth. Yeah.
Okay, so knowing this, knowing when you're going into labor, you're going to tell the doctor or your nurses, by the way,
Yeah, I'd like to keep my
we'd like to keep our placenta.
So what you would do is you would definitely tell the nurses and doctors, write it in your birth plan. You would contact me most likely before you have the baby and go into labor, before you have the baby, so we can plan for that. You need to bring a cooler and some Ziploc bags. You have to make sure that there's ice available to you as soon as the placenta is born. So yeah, there's some steps that need to be taken. There is some preparation that has to be done.
Okay, it's almost like an organ donation, right? You want to keep that organ,
nice and
that
cold.
placenta cold and fresh.
That's right.
And put it right in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, and then when do you come into the home to do the whole encapsulation process?
I like to come into the home, just hours after the baby's born, preferably. The placenta can stay fresh in the fridge for a couple of days, and then after that, it does need to be refrigerated. Frozen. But again, we can defrost it and stuff. But generally before 2 days
Very soon.
postpartum. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much,
Thank
Jenny.
you, Julia,
this
for
is
having
so
me.
Fascinating. For everyone at home who's interested in learning more about placenta encapsulation, you can send Jenny an email, jenny@goldenheartbaby.com. I want to thank everyone at home for watching, and thank my guests for a wonderful and very enlightening topic. We'll see you here next week on In the Know.